Hi, Steph, the BMW DIY guy, showing off my new Euro custom plate I'm really excited about. My project today is from Pro Auto Motion. It is the M Sport style conversion front bumper for my F32 435. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, as you do exterior projects like this, especially something like a bumper, you're going to have to get it painted. There's going to be some extra steps that you do in a project like this that I had to go through as well, and I'll walk you through all of that. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you fitment of the bumper to make sure that it fits your car and fits well. The other thing you want to do before you take your bumper for painting or talk to your shop when you get it painted, make sure that they look it over really closely, that if there's any mold lines or anything else like that on the plastic, that's sanded down nicely before they paint. So mine looked fantastic. I'll show you the fitment process on how to take the bumper off, and then we'll walk through how to put the new bumper back on, and you're going to transfer all of the components out of your old bumper, or a bunch of them, like your fog lights and your PDC if you have it and the like, and transfer it into your new bumper. There's going to be a number of steps that you have here. So for example, if you don't have the parking distance control, you're not going to have to worry about that, and you'll actually order that very specifically without those cutouts in the bumper. I have that. I also do not have the headlight washer system, so the doors for the headlight washer system I have permanently attached down because they don't attach to anything. So let's get out to the garage, let's walk through this process. This is something that I think you're really going to enjoy doing for your car. Okay, so we're going to start along the bottom. There's a series of 4 8mm bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 up here in the wheel well that you're going to want to pull out. And then all the way across the lip, across the bottom, you can see these 8mm bolts. So when you pull these, I don't think you need to have your car up in the air at all. It would be easier to get underneath it, but all you have to do is just lay on the bottom, so you don't have to worry about jacking your car up or anything else like that. So I'm going to pull all of these, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this wheel well, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the other, and come along the bottom and take all the bottom ones out. There's also a weather stripping piece here across the nose that you just slide up and off, and I've just laid it right here. And you'll see a series of Torx. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big Torx bolts. They're T35s, and then 2 T25s here in the corner. So I'm going to save those for last, because as you do the bottom, it's going to hang off this nose piece. As I do the bottom, I don't want it, if I did the top first and then the bottom, it could be sagging as I do the bottom ones. So I'm going to do the wheel wells, then across the bottom, and pull these top pieces. And then the whole piece will lift off. It's surprisingly light, so you don't really have to worry about that. The other thing that you might want to keep in mind too, that if you're doing this in the same order that I am, be careful with this. Don't chew this up. So pull it off carefully, set it aside carefully. Now, if you already have your new front bumper and you have it painted, you don't have to be as careful, but I don't see any reason to chew this piece up. So I'm going to take it apart very carefully. Like I said, I'm going to pull all those bolts, then I'll show you taking it off. Okay, so I want to show you the next step. So first of all, I want to show you a little bit of my trick that I use. I've got a couple of bungee cords, and for example, when I was changing my reflectors from those god-awful eggshell ones to color matching, I find that this wheel well shield, if you undo the bolts on that, you can use a bungee cord into the holes of where those bolts go to pull it back, which is what you're going to want to do in this case to give yourself a little bit of additional room. So like I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 big bolts coming up. But then there are 2 additional ones here and here. They're driven straight up and they're much longer. The front one you can see pretty easily without removing or pulling back the wheel shield, or this wheel well shield. But the second one, you have to pull it back to be able to see it. Once you pull those, this piece will come loose. This will also give you an opportunity to unplug your fog lights if you have them. Now, I also have the PDC or parking distance sensors in my bumper. So as you pull this off, you're going to want to be really careful. So as I pan around here, I've pulled these on this side as well. So as you can see, so the bumper's mostly loose right now. A couple of things here along the bottom edges. So like I said, you've got a series of 8mm bolts across the bottom. You also have 1, 2, 3 little of those black pressure clips that push up as well. So you use like a plastic trim tool, pull the center pin out, and those clips will come out. So 1, 2, 3 on this side, all the bolts across the nose, the other 3 pressure clips on the other side, the bolts up through the wheel well, and those 2 big tall ones that come up. I've also pulled our bolts here. So like I said, we've got 2 T25s on either corner and then T35s through the center. Now, it's basically loose at this point. As you can see, it's starting to pull away, which is the stage you really want to be careful. As you can see, as it pulls away, this is an opportunity to make sure to go through that you don't pull or badly tear any of your PDC sensors, right? So I'm going to reach in. I've got a headlight, or headlamp, which is really handy to use in doing car work. I'm going to put that back on, and then I'm going to walk through all of this gap and make sure that they're all unplugged, and then just pull this away from the front of the car, and it should be good to go. So I'll show you once it's off. Okay, so it's off. Now the one thing is, if you have, like I said, the PDC sensors, the connection is over here on the passenger side. It's in the same wiring harness as your fog light. It's that plug right there, which was kind of a bear to get out. But once that's off, the whole thing just came off really nice and neatly, as you can see. So whole thing is off. You get to see all the stuff that you've sucked up in your car for a while. I had a tremendous amount of debris right there in my oil cooler, as you can see. So I got to pull all that out, which was kind of gross. And you can see my radiator, and down below you can see my intercooler. When I changed my intercooler, I actually found a small desiccated old little bird that I'd sucked up at some point. So thankfully I don't have to deal with that this time. So what you want to do now, and like I said, if you already have your bumper painted, you can skip right to the assembly stage that I'm going to be looking at here. But there's a number of things you need to do to make sure that it fits right. So for example, this ducting is going to change. So there's new ducting here. So this is going to have to come out. There's some clips and a bolt holding those ducts in place. And I'm going to do everything that I need to do to get this to fit, but not do final fitment. Like I said, I'm not going to transfer my kidney grills. I'm not going to transfer the roundel. I'm not going to do any of those things, because I'm going to put that right back on when we're done. So next stage is going to be pulling out the new bumper and checking fitment. I'm going to pull out the tubes and those air duct tubes. I'm going to pull my existing ones, and I'll show you on how to do that. I'm going to install the new ones, and then I'm going to look to put the new bumper on. Now, what I've also seen as well, in one occasion, this little foam crush point right here, I've seen have to come off in a couple of examples of M Sport replica bumpers. Now, I don't know if that's the case for me at this point, but it may need to come off as well, but we'll see. All right, so I'm going to pull the ducting next. Before I go too much further, I want to show you what I've done. And if you're following the same order that I am, where I'm going to fit this and then take it for painting. Now, if you've already taken yours to painting, maybe you've got it pre-assembled, maybe you had your shop do it. This is something you can definitely do, but it's a matter of just putting the pieces together. Also, you're going to be transferring some pieces from your original OEM bumper here. So for example, this is the corner, and I'm going to leave it covered for now. There's a little bracket you're going to take off your OEM bumper to snap onto here for those long screws. You can see this piece, and everything's marked left and right. This is going to be the driver's side. This is vent and fog light, because I've got fogs. There's a little cover you can put over it too, which I'm probably going to put on this side because, well, I'm going to decide when I get there. But there's a cover that you can put on over the top of it. On the passenger side, I wouldn't put it there regardless, because that's where your oil cooler is. So you can see where all these pieces fit in and how they fit in as you put this all together, right? So, I'm just going to lay this here for now. Okay, so as you can see, all these pieces are here, and you're going to secure them as you put them all together. So all pretty straightforward as you go. The pieces all make sense. I've got my vent tubes here. I've already pre-fitted one of the vent tubes. I took the OEM tube off. That was right there. And there's 2 pressure pins and a screw inside the wheel well, and then the vent tube will come out from that side, which is currently laying right there. So I've pre-fit everything, and then I'm going to take the bumper and I'm going to fit it into place. Now you can also see I took that black absorbent kind of foam piece off right here as well, so this will fit properly. So the fitment right now is going to look a little rough because my parking sensors aren't in and those things, and fogs aren't in and all those sort of things. But like I said, this is what we want to do before we take it to painting. So I'm going to fit the bumper on, and I'll show you what that looks like right now, because like I said, there's kind of a limited amount that I'm going to do for fitment right now. I'm not going to screw it all into place because I'm going to put my OEM bumper back on. So plus, there's a crossbar down here at the bottom that I'm going to need to take off. But I'm not going to take it off right now because I'm going to put my OEM bumper back on, like I said. So But all in all, this looks really good. So it fits around the headlights really, really well. Right now you can see the gap again because I don't have all the little accessory pieces on, and the lower section doesn't want to fit all the way back into place, along with the ducts don't want to fit back into place with this crossbar right here. So all in all, as I took the OEM ducts out on both sides and have the new ducts sitting in temporarily, but as you can see, this looks really good. And an M Sport bumper instead of that, which candidly, I really love my car, but I've always hated the bumper. That's a really, really boring kind of non-aggressive setup for what can be a really aggressive car. So you can see I also have the headlight washer cutouts here as well. So these are going to be, for me, permanently affixed into place when I get it painted. So I'll have my shop glue the back portions, the ducting part on, and then paint it all and permanently adhere those in place because I don't use them, I don't have them on the car, don't need them. So all of the grills in the new bumper are out. Obviously the kidney grills are not in, but all in all, this looks really, really good. So at this point, I'm gonna take it back apart and put all of the OEM stuff back on. Like I mentioned earlier, this was an ample opportunity to clean out my oil cooler. You can see the amount of garbage that came out of there. I'm gonna make sure that's nice and cleaned out before I put this back together. But I am really pleased. Fitment looks good, fit looks good. It's just gonna be a matter of putting it all back together once it's painted. So at this point, I'm gonna put my OEM bumper back on. I'm gonna pack this all up and make sure to have all the pieces that I need. Now, there also are, for example, when you get yours painted, there's the back portions that go. Now, if you've got these pieces, you're gonna need to have them painted anyway. If you have the washers, if not, have them permanently put on and then painted. There's also little mounts that go behind that will need to be glued or permanently adhered into place so they're painted correctly as well. So, and that's why these oversized holes in the front look so big, is because there are big mounts that come through for your parking sensors. So they will go into place and then get painted and look great. So all in all, I am really pleased. This looks great. The other thing I want to point out is this is a European style bumper. So you don't have those marker reflectors on the side. Now in my case, on my OEM bumper, I got OEM color matched reflectors and put them in to make it look better, but in this case I don't even have it, so which is great. So this is the OEM style bumper, or excuse me, the European style bumper. So let me take this off, put it back together. I'll talk about that a little bit once I'm done, and we'll walk through the final assembly once it's painted. Okay, so my OEM bumper's back on, and you know, fitment of this really, and the new one is designed the same way. I mean, the fitment along here is great because of these posts and the way these screws come in. You're not going to end up with a bad gap. Also, as you look here with these big Torx screws, there's also these clips right here that the nose will clip into as you go along. So make sure that those are all clipped into place. I'm going to put the weather stripping back in a moment. But I've put everything back together. I've got all my posts back in, or all the screws back in. My wheel wells are back where they should be. Make sure that these pieces are tucked back behind the bumper edge. Everything underneath, all of the little pressure posts and all the screws along the bottom lip are in. You know, fitment around the headlights is right, everything is right. So my OEM bumper's back on and good to go. So car's back to being drivable and everything's just fine there. So all I need to do now is take my bumper and get it painted. So when I get the bumper back, we'll go through all this all again. I'm not going to describe how taking the OEM bumper off. But what we will do is we'll talk about how to transfer all the little components and pieces that you're going to need to transfer onto the new bumper, some of the clips and some of the little pieces to make it fit. So let's take the bumper to painting. Okay, so here we are, one last view of the Sport line bumper. Before I pull it off, I've got the new bumper back. It's all painted and ready to go. I'm going to show you how I put the those grill inserts in. You have to be really careful when you do it. But one last look of the bumper before I take it off. I've already described how to take it off entirely, so I'm not going to walk through that again. I'm going to pull it off. There's also a lower strut bar I'm going to pull off as well. I'll show you that as I do it. But let me show you what I've done with the grills. So this is the new bumper. I've got it laid down on some towels here on my garage floor. I don't want to scratch it up as I'm doing the work and transferring components, because as I pull the old bumper off, I'm going to have to transfer my fogs, my parking distance sensors and the like. The other thing I'm going to need to do that I'm going to show you, those are the holes for the PDC sensors. You can see those big holes right there. So I've got the plugs for that painted as well, of course, and I'm going to glue those in place. So I'm going to show you what I've done there next. But in the interim, I want to show these grills in place. These all snap in place. There's a series of little pressure clips that go all the way around. Be really careful when you fit this into place. On both of the right and left side, when I initially put it on, it seemed to snap right into place and I was good to go, but I missed this tab and was bent to the inside. So I had to really carefully back the tabs back out to pull this cover off to get it back into place. And the bumper material is thicker than these black covers, so I was really concerned about potentially breaking them as I took them off, so I had to be really, really careful. So don't make the mistake I did and miss those on both sides. Make sure that all the little tabs are slotted into place before you push them down and snap them in, because when they're in, they're very firmly in place. You can see in the center grill, you've got all the tabs as well as you go around. All those are locked into place and nice and smooth, and the same thing on this side. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the PDC sensor covers, or those little plugs, into place along with, as you can see, the hole right there. That is for the headlight washer system, which I don't have. So I'm going to glue those covers down. What I did was, the bumper comes with a little bit of adhesive. What I did, in addition, when I was at my body shop, I talked to them about it, and I got a tube of 3M plastic adhesive that I'm going to use that they recommended. So all of this is going to be transfer. I'm going to put those pieces into place to give them drying time while I'm pulling my original bumper off. All right, I'll show you that next. Okay, so I've got the PDC sensor covers in place. I'm going to zoom in really slowly here. So what I've used is 3M adhesive that I got from the body shop. It says use masking tape or other tape to help hold them in place. Whatever adhesive you use, make sure to follow the directions really closely. The directions that I had for my adhesive is very specific because of the type that I got. Now you can see that the headlight washer covers are in place. Those come with 3M double-sided adhesive, so I just used that adhesive and have secured them into place. I'm looking obviously at the back side of the bumper right now, so this would be passenger side. You can see that sensor's in place. Slowly scroll across. There's the cover. There's the center sensor. Now the two big center sensors are the ones that stick through the bumper. They have a very certain orientation as you look at them. You can see one side is kind of shallow, one side sticks out further. There's also a bend in the plug clip itself. That bend, it should go leaning upwards towards the center, towards the kidney grills. And as you can see, I've got that one in place. And then I'll slowly come across, and as you can see, I've got that one in place, plus the cover, which I've used that 3M adhesive to put into place because I don't have those washers, so I'm not too worried about it. So what I need to do now, let me scroll back out here gently. I've got my OEM bumper off that has all the hardware on. So you can see there's the back of the fog light, the PDC sensor. You can see the back of my kidney grills. I've already pulled my roundel off the nose, which is held down with some double-sided adhesive that didn't want to come up very cleanly, so I'm going to have to buy some more double-sided adhesive. So what you need to do now is transfer all of these components to the new one. So I'm going to start with my kidney grills, which from this side, as you can see, has just a series of interlocking tabs. So I'm going to back those tabs out to get my grills off, then I'm going to put them on. Now I'm also giving time for my adhesive on my PDC sensors to cure. It takes at least half an hour according to the type that I have. And then you'll take these sensors out. Now, one thing that I want to show, let me bend down here slowly. When you look at the PDC sensors, they have a very certain orientation. They're rounded on one side, flat on the other. Now, in this orientation, the left side of this sensor, and all of them, the right side has a square cut notch, the left side has a rounded notch. So I've put the far right and far left PDC sensor mounts in the same orientation. And the reason why I did that is because if you look at the bigger ones, they only go in one orientation to fit your bumper correctly. And the orientation for those is the rounded notch on the left, the squared notch on the right. So I've matched that with the two others that could have gone in either orientation. They could be turned either way because they're round on two sides and flattened on others, so you could flip them either direction. And I don't think it would matter that much, but I put them in the same orientation just to be consistent. So what I'm going to do now is give my PDC sensors mounts a little more time to cure. I'm going to take out my fog lights, going to take out my grills and transfer them to the new bumper. I'll show you that when I'm done. And I've got everything transferred. So I'm going to kind of walk through the entire bumper to show everything that's been moved. So first of all, starting at the upper corner, there are these little locking plates that you need to pull off your OEM bumper and slip on here. There are all of these little screw plates, 1, 2, 3, 4 that you have to pull off. Now I've also transferred my fogs as well. So your fog lights will come out off your OEM bumper by pulling these two screws, and then they'll hinge out off of these two little posts. So once you have your grill piece in here and everything is snapped down into place, make sure all of the tabs are straight when you snap it into place, because if you have a tab out of place, it's really a pain to get that grill back off. So really try to avoid that. So get that grill in, and then you've got this big plastic piece that slots into place. It fits in, and you can tell how it's shaped to the bumper and fits in. So I've transferred these little locking plates, I've put the fog lights in, and I've screwed and secured that into place. All of my PDC sensors, I pulled it out, and it's just a matter of just pulling it out of the little clips that all the wires are in, out of your OEM bumper. You can see the end here. This is on the passenger side where it'll plug in just like it did before. I've snapped it into each one of those sensors as we walk across. You'll see this, and you can see the cable run that runs underneath. Now, my kidney grills have been transferred as well. Now, there's the centerpiece that you'll want to transfer off of your OEM bumper that helps structurally make the structure of this piece stronger. You pull out of the top, there's two little clips at the top, you pull that, then it'll rock back out of place of your OEM bumper, and same thing here. You slide the bottom in first and then snap it into place. My kidney grills are in place. Walk across, you can see the rest of my PDC sensors. I've got one out currently sitting right there as my glue is still drying on that particular sensor holder right there. And then my fog is in on this side as well. Again, transferred this little screw plate up here, all of the locking plates. I put this grill in place, put the fog in, screwed it into place, and then secured this big piece into place as well. Now the one piece I'm going to have to work out is this long plastic piece here that matches across this bottom lip, and I'm going to have to fit that once I've got the bumper more into place, and I can see how all of those screws that are coming up from your belly pan will actually line up with that. So I'll get that all done. But everything is transferred from the old bumper to the new. So let's talk about changing out the ducts. Those are going to be a really quick fix, or a quick change, and then also taking off that lower support bar as well. Okay, so here's looking at the driver's side. You can see the ducting. There's two little pressure clips above and below. You pull both of those out, and you pull the screw that's in on the wheel well side at the bottom right there that you can see, and then your duct will come right out. You do the same on the other side, and then this crossbar right here will take off as well. And it's just got, I believe it's a 10mm nut. I'll confirm here in a second once my ducts are out. But you'll take that crossbar off as well. So I'm going to do that next. So both ducts are removed. I'm looking, this is driver's side right at the moment. That's where that crossbar would normally be. There are two 10mm bolts, one on each side, and then that crossbar comes across. So now we'll just be fitting the new duct in. You'll want to take that little locking plate off the OEM piece and put it on the back of the new one. They're marked left and right again. Left being driver's side, right being passenger side. As with all the rest that you've done so far, just fit that duct in. I'm going to fit it in on the other side as well. Now please note you had to take the oil cooler vent off as well. It's got two little pressure pins on the passenger side to be able to get to the pressure pins for the for the those tubes on, or the tube on the passenger side. So you had to take that off as well. So I've got that off, so I'm going to put both of the new vents on. Okay, so one last review before we put the bumper on and we fit it into place. I added one more piece in the interim that I wanted to make sure to point out. Again, make sure all of your sensors are in place, your fog lights are secure, all of the little those metal screw clips are all in place. Now, the one thing that I did do is this long, straight, black plastic piece. I want you to make sure to show it so you can see the orientation as I look down on it as the bumper's sitting on its nose right now. I have 4 pin rivets right here pushed up through to fit this in place. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will hold this piece in place, and then your belly pan will go over the top of this piece once it's installed, and you can see these large scalloped out areas where your screws will come through and attach to the metal, those metal screw plates on the belly pan. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way across. So that piece is in place, fits correctly. Everything else is in place and ready to go. All my sensors are in. So at this point, I'm just going to hang the bumper. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hang it by the nose first. I'm going to make sure the nose and all those top screws across the top in the engine bay are on first, so it can hang, and then I'll fit all the rest in. I'll show you that when I'm about halfway done so you can see, but I'm going to go hang it first. Okay, so the bumper's on, and I figured it'd be easier to kind of show you post what I did than play by play. So with all of the interior components on, all of my sensors on, I hung it by the nose first. So this upper section here, slid it underneath these clips that I've discussed before. I put all my Torx bolts in to help hold it in place, but I put them on loosely so I'd have a little bit of wiggle room to attach it. Obviously, I've put the roundel back on as well. Now, in my case, when I peeled mine off from the OEM bumper, the double-sided adhesive came off, so I used a little bit of 3M adhesive on the back of that to replace it and put it back into place. So I hung the corners first because you get good body panel fitment here. So I put those 2 big long screws in first after fitting it around the headlights, and then worked my way down the wheel well. Make sure that you get the 8mm screw that's at the back of the brake vent tube that comes through. If you haven't put it in already, make sure that it's in. In my case, I couldn't reach it the way the wheels were turned. So as I come around here really quickly, you'll notice this the big black foam piece that was on the aluminum metal bar across the middle. Now, this bumper is smaller than the one that I had, and because of the way the sensors sit and all the cabling sit, I had to take this off. Now, your bumper's going to come with a big white foam piece as well. I think that's for necessarily a different model of car. So the foam piece that came with the M Sport bumper I didn't use, and the factory one I took off as well because it would not fit and fit well with that in place. So I took it off, and I wanted to make sure to point that out, and which is why I put it there. So the other thing I wanted to point out is the push rivets. I've got 2 in each corner that help also hold down that interior surround around the fog light, and then on each side. So I've got all the 8mm down the wheel wells and the push rivets on the corner. Now, the other thing that I do have right now is I've got about 6 of those 8mm bolts left over. The next time I have the car up on the lift, I'm going to get my head underneath and really look to see how the alignment of those 4, especially those 4 across the nose, all line up. The way the belly pan is coming up and over that black piece, you know, that we put in with the push rivets or pin rivets, the belly pan's in and secure. It's as firm as it ever has been with those screws in. So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 1 on this side and 1 on this side. So 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have out, but the belly pan feels secure. It's not going to gap. It's all up and above the lip of the bumper, so it's not going to fall and gap and catch air or moisture or anything else like that. So I'm not worried about it. So I think it's going to be just fine without it. I'll probably have my car up on the lift in the next month or so, and when I do, I'll bring those bolts with me and I'll check that alignment, but for right now, I'm really not worried about it whatsoever. So the last thing I wanted to point out is now that it's all hung and everything's set, I did tighten these Torx bolts across the top. The rubber trim gasket I need to put back on, but other than that, it's done. Looks absolutely fantastic. The color matches just perfectly. I have the mineral gray. Matches absolutely perfectly, and forgive the little bit of afternoon sun coming in through the garage, but it looks really tremendously better than the Sportline bumper that I had on before. So I'm really pleased with this. It looks absolutely fantastic. So with the exception of a little bit of cleanup and that rubber gasket back on, we're all done. Okay, so all done. As you can see, it's a bit of a detailed process, but it really isn't hard. Now, if you look your bumper over, there's a couple of thoughts you can think about. You could potentially skip that fitment stage that I went through where I took the OEM off, fitted the new one to make sure that it fit okay, and then put it all back together. If you did it all in one pass, you could potentially save yourself some time. And it might even be worth it to do that, because I'm really impressed on how well this bumper fits. The only thing you'd really want to look over is to make sure that there isn't any like mold lines or a little bit of plastic left over, anything else like that in the manufacturer of the bumper. But when you take it to your shop, you can ask them to do that. Depends on what level of service you get from your shop. Now in my case, because I'm doing all of the labor myself, all I did was drive the bumper down to my local paint shop, drop it off, say do what you need to do, and then give me a call when it's done. So you can go through all the extra steps. Now, you don't necessarily have to do everything that I did, but it's a great way to save money. When you look at how relatively easy it is to take your bumper off, I think you're gonna understand why you're gonna want to save at least a couple of $100 for doing the install for somebody just to take your bumper off and to put it back on. It's really not worth it to me. You could either save that money, you could use it to make sure you get an even higher quality paint job, however you want to spend it. It's a good way to do this work yourself and really save the time. So I'm really excited about this. The car looks fantastic. It completely changes the look of my car. The Sport line is okay for the way the bumper looks, but honestly it's always been kind of bland to me. The M Sport looks significantly more aggressive. It really has that much more of a shark look to it. That really is that BMW legacy, like the old 6 Series from like the 70s and 80s, where they called them sharks. Yeah, this gives it much more of that shark look. So I'm really impressed. The quality is fantastic. My shop did a great job in painting it. Make sure that you get a good paint job that matches your color well, because you don't want it to stand out or not look right. One thing I am going to do is I am going to make sure in the next couple of days to a week, I'm going to polish it down really nicely, wax it really well, and it's going to look absolutely flawless. So I highly recommend this. Thank you to my partner, Brian of Pro Auto Motion. They are a real pleasure to work with. They're absolutely fantastic. They ship very, very securely, which is something you can always wonder about in a part that big. It's shipped beautifully. They're a great company to work with, and what a great product to have on your car. And again, it's really high quality. It's the same materials of the OEM components, so it's going to paint well, it's going to look right with the right paint, and it's really going to make your car look great. So I highly suggest it. Thank you so much. If you like what you've seen, please click subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference to me and my channel, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video.